Hey there, this is Darren LaCroix, world champion of public speaking. I'm here with some of the best coaches in the world, Mark Brown, Lance Miller, Mike Davis, and we love every year to kind of sit down, take notes on the world championship, and kind of have a great insider view conversation. Now, let me say right up front, it's easy to sit back and critique after the fact. These people have worked, the finalists have worked really hard, and it's easy to kind of just sit back and just pick things apart. However, we love to teach, so we want to do that. But again, it's easy to be a critic. But welcome to Critics Corner. But our goal is to help inspire you to become a better speaker. So you'll see the things that we see. If you know the story, Mark Brown looked at my speech, first version, and said, "Oh, Darren, we have some work to do." So joining me today is Mike Davis. He is a TEDx coach and one of our coaches here at Stage Time University. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Darren, thanks for letting me be here with you guys tonight. Appreciate that. Look forward to it.
And Mark Brown, my coach, my mentor. How are you, Mark?
So far, so blessed. It's always a joy for me to be in the company of great coaches and talking about speaking. I love it and I live for it.
All right. And Lance Miller, Lance, world champion speaker, Mark, world champion speaker. Lance, you were the coach of the world champion of public speaking. How did that feel, first of all?
Oh, it was gratifying. Verity was really great to work with. And I think that's one of the things as coaches, we can coach, but you have people that are coachable. And that's really probably the biggest thing I think we've all run into, and probably one of the biggest things that we ran into when we were coming up the lines. Were we coachable? And I know, Darren, you and I have had some conversations about your response to Mark saying, "Oh, Darren, we have some work to do."
That's another story. What?
And the thing is, this is what I'll just say on, I think, this journey for everybody, it's really almost a journey of self-realization, self-definition, and really getting to know yourself more so than it is a journey of public speaking. It's really finding where your messages are, where do you live, what do you want to say. When you connect that, things start to come together for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, your first insights before we dive in.
My first insights is, first of all, it's always difficult to compete in a virtual space, because you're dealing with a box, you're basically in a box, and you have to try your best to make the most of what you have, knowing that pretty much everybody who's watching is used to watching on a mobile device or an iPad or a TV, and you almost compete with TV and media, Netflix, Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, Hulu, and all of the above. And to be able to deliver a message in 7 minutes in that medium is not enormously easy. So my first insight is to congratulate all the contestants for doing their job, their best of their ability, for showing some creativity and some uniqueness that really left all of us inspired and entertained.
Yeah, and a lot of them, you could tell they learned from last year. If you're not following along with the World Championship, last year was the first time ever it was virtual, so you could see that many of them studied. And just to become a finalist, so there's 8 finalists, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Eight finalists in the World Championship. Back in the old day, it used to be 9, but they narrowed it down. Just to get get a spot in the finals out of 35,000 people who compete is amazing. And they have to keep creating new speeches in the top few levels. So now they're working with a speech that's not necessarily tried and true in the contest format. Mike Davis, just general observations on the contest.
Well, I'm thinking follow up on what Mark said is a few weeks ago on Unforgettable Presentations podcast, the quote was, and I can't remember who said it now, we were in elementary school a year and a half ago with regard to the lockdown. We are now in high school when it comes to using the virtual platform. And I think it showed this year. Much better use of the camera, the speaking area, and they didn't look quite as uncomfortable.
And some professional speakers are still out in the playground. They're not even in elementary school, and it breaks my heart. Upgrade, come on. Lance, any other quick insights on the contest overall, and then let's dive in.
Yeah, a couple of things. I think learning to speak virtually is critical now, but at the same token, it's a completely different beast, as Mark in a and Mike were both referring to, it's a completely different beast than being in front of from an audience. You don't have that interaction. You don't have that feedback. You can't see. You don't have the energy there. You're looking at a camera. And one of the things for me that I look for in these is that somebody would perform as well on stage as they do in front of the camera. And I'll just say right up front, when I see people using the camera where they couldn't do it on stage, I'm like, that starts to, like I said, we need to present ourselves and not play with the surrounding we're in that we couldn't do on stage. One of the things I look for, but we'll talk about that as we get into it. And that's come up both last couple of years. So.
Yeah, and it's very different making eye contact with a lens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the modality right now, and that's what they're being judged on. So very cool. So if you're watching this, thank you. Remember, we are coaches. This is what we do for a living. We love what we do. We live to help good presenters become unforgettable. It's a different skill set, but this is our skill set, so we want to teach you through the experience. All right. So let's go to number 3. This is the people who came in 3, 2, 1. We're going to start with number 3. Roger Caesar. Is it in you? Is it in you? One quick thing. This is just my pet peeve. I personally, because Mark and I teach mastering virtual presentations, I'm just not a fan of the ring light because we can see it in your eyes. And
Literally,
again,
see it in your eyes.
and again, this is picayune. It's just one thing I just want to bring up if anybody's watching. And we saw it in Nitay's as well, but it was very prominent in Roger's. But I liked Roger. He was authentic. He was conversational. Slightly kind of telegraphed to me where he was going with it. I did like perseverance and patience, little alliteration in there. What I thought was a little confusing is he seemed to have multiple premises in a 7-minute speech. So one of them being great isn't about you. Okay, got it. And then there was even in silence, you can, I don't remember the exact words, but there seemed to be competing messages. And for everyone, and even in a TEDx talk, 18 minutes, one premise. We teach professional speakers, 45 minutes, 1 hour, 90 minutes, one overriding premise. You can have subpoints that build towards that premise, but one premise. So I think it could have used a little clarity in what you were really trying to get across. And this is one of the things we teach right up front. Get clear on the message first. Otherwise, you can put a lot of effort in that just gets diluted or has to get thrown out later on. Mark, pass it over to you.
Yeah, and I personally, because I'm a family guy, I like the way he used the family, his own personal experiences with his sister and so on. And he gave us a glimpse into his life experience. And it wasn't all philosophy. Of course, when you hear being great isn't about you, it's about how you inspire greatness in others. That seemed to be his main theme, which I would encourage anyone with a theme of that length to find a way to condense that into fewer words. It's being great isn't about you. It's about how you inspire your greatness in others. That's about 26 syllables. It's a lot to remember. So you want to work on condensing down the essence of what you say so you can create that through line, that foundational phrase that continues to resonate. I would suspect for those who heard the speech, that foundational phrase would be, being great isn't about you. Fine. What do I do with that? It should be throughout your life, find a way, inspire greatness in others. It could simply be inspire greatness in others. Inspire greatness in others. 4 words. If that was the message you wanted to drive home to me, and he put that in 3 different places, inspire greatness in others, I walk away knowing I have this, not this mandate, but this opportunity, and I dare say this responsibility to inspire greatness in others. So I would say that would have been a really great foundational phrase to carry through. And the foundational phrase, for those who are new to this, is a phrase that you use throughout your speech. That is the foundation or anchor of your whole premise. Back to you, Darren.
All right, I'll hand over to Mike and then Lance.
Mark, we talk a lot on the core calls about specific moments. And
Yes.
the moment when he saw his sister the second time, that was one he should have stayed in and let us feel the impact on him, because I agree with you. It wasn't clear. I just wasn't sure, what is it in you and what do I do with it? So lack of clarity there. I think in that moment, if he uses the 4 words you just said, inspire greatness in others, that's when he would have understood. And I think that would make for a much better speech. Look, Roger's a very good speaker. I've seen him before. Darren, I felt like I was watching a performance. There were just too many areas for me where I felt like this is not how he would talk to me over a lunch table. And I know that's a Toastmasters issue with a lot of folks. I would like to see, yes, he did share part of his story of his family. I didn't feel like I was getting the real Roger. I felt like there was a bit that performance was masking some of him, because I wasn't feeling pain or I wasn't experiencing the joy. So I thought that was missing. Look, he's got.
Compare that, Mike, if I could jump for a second. You compare that to Verity's, like Verity was like the ultimate at that. We'll get to her in just a second, but watch his and watch Verity's and you'll get what we're saying, Mike.
Yeah, it was authentic. And there were a couple of points. These are minor points for the future speeches. But when he asked the question, did you ever have a sibling that had to go wherever you went, something like that? My answer was no, I'm an only child. Immediately, I shut out of that part of the speech. So this was brought up earlier about one of the other speeches. Don't ask those kind of questions where the answer could be no. So be careful with those type. And I'll throw it over to Lance. I've got some others if we have time.
Lance?
Yeah, to that point, great energy, a great individual. There's no question about that. Same thing, to echo what Mike was saying. I felt there was a bit of a performance, and one of the things I wanted to be on stage, the one of the things I worked on, I wanted to be the same person on stage you'd run into the hallway I wanted to be myself on stage. And I felt that we were getting a performance. Same thing, I have a big issue on asking questions, period, that the audience doesn't answer. To me, if you ask a question, it's like opening up a window on the computer. It starts eating up memory in the audience. If you ask them a question, you never gave them a chance to answer. And so, to your point, Mike, did you ever have a sibling you had to go everywhere with you? I had 5 siblings, but I didn't have somebody who tried to go everywhere with me. And the other thing is, you had to think about it.
Yeah.
Here's the point. The whole idea as a speaker, you want to get the attention on you. You want to get the audience's attention. When you ask them a question, you drive the attention back into their head, because you got to think, did I did that? And it goes back, and now you got to get the attention back. So asking questions, and there were a couple of speakers throughout this thing that asked 4 or 5, 6 questions in their speeches. From that standpoint, the other thing was, on Mark's point, I would even make this message more unique than inspire greatness in others. I would say, if you want to be great, make great. Something like that. You want to be great, make great. And then I would have a hero that said that to him. You want to be great, make great. And he goes, what do you mean? If you want to be great, make great. And so that he gets that message and then goes, applies it and gets the application going. And I didn't have a clear aha moment that I went, oh, that impacted me. That was the surprise realization about life I needed to have, that I can apply in my life. And I see it. And the last thing I would say with Roger was that I felt that towards the end, he started sort of, and this comes in, I said, you share your story. You share your story with the audience. You don't tell the audience what they're supposed to be thinking. And I felt at the end, he started preaching or commanding, you need to do this, you need to do that. And he loses me at that point. I'm just going to say this from a speaking standpoint, from a life experience standpoint, I've taken some hits. I've been around. It's like it takes somebody to tell me, I learned those lessons 20 years ago. Okay. So I want something that I'm going, oh, wow, that would work. Or I have a friend that would work for it, versus the person acting like they're the smartest person in the room and they're telling me, because I'm not. I need to learn the lesson that they've learned. And that's something that a lot of the speakers struggled with this year, was they started commanding the audience. And I would say, you don't command, you share, you applied it in your life, and then the audience gets it from that standpoint. But I do want to commend Roger, because he's got a phenomenal presence. I've seen some of the other interviews with him. Wonderful, wonderful individual. He did bring a great message up, and I hope he hears this and takes it up. My phone going up, but takes it up for, moves forward with this, and I'd like to see him back on the stage next year.
Yeah. Mike Davis, what else did you want to add?
Yeah, just what he has the it factor. It just getting very clear on that message. Let's just see more of you. There's a hero's journey in here. I think mom is the guru, even though the sister's the one who changed. Mom pointed it out to him, and I'd strip it down to that. And I think this message has a lot more potential.
I'm curious. When he said it is in you, how did you interpret the word it? What is the it?
I wasn't sure because I was getting multiple messages, so I didn't know what to.
Greatness? Is it inspiration? I don't think that was abundantly plain. No questions asked. It's obvious the it. And is the it greatness that's in you, or is it the ability to inspire greatness in others? So think about, and it's when we all of us and those watching and listening, when you deliver a message, particularly if it comes close to cliche, it could be greatness. My mind goes to Les Brown. You have greatness within you. Our friend Les Darren. So you want to differentiate yourself. So is the it the greatness, or is the inspiration that you can provide for others to be great? Just a thought to be considered. Darren?
Yeah, and it's also when we look at things that are cliche, even greatness is in you. Like I'm also thinking DJ, I see something in you. I don't know what it is. But that I see something in you, but I don't know what it is. That's unique. That's different. And for everyone, what the coach helps you with is understanding the most important part of a presentation is the thought process in the listener's mind. The most important part of a presentation is the thought process in the listener's mind. And what we're all talking about here is, okay, they said something, but it's how we listen. It's how we hear it. That if we're not clear, we're trying to figure out what they're saying and we're not glued. We're not leaning in. We're leaning back to what do they mean by that? And that's what we mean by the thought process in the listener's mind. By the way, if you're getting some great content out of this, which we hope you are, please forward this video to your speaker friends, professional speaker friends, fellow Toastmasters. We love what we do. And look, find a coach, even if it's not us. I mean, hey, why wouldn't you choose us? But, you can work with Lance. You can go to lancemillerspeaks.com, work directly with Lance, work with Mike or Mark, go to getaspeakingcoach.com. Join us in Stage Time University. We love what we do. We're talking about the conference calls. The person who came in second, Nitay, is one of our Stage Time members. Very proud. I'm going to do a quick brag here. This year, there's only 28 finalists and semifinalists. 28 semifinalists, and we had 7 of them were Stage Time University members. 7, that's 25%. Now, Lance had 2 coaching clients. Ed Tate had 2 coaching clients as well in the finals. And it's just like the commonality is find a coach. I honestly think that there's people who see the value in coaching, and there's presenters who will never, ever reach their full potential. And I know that's bold, but I would have fought you on that. I would have fought me on that before I started working with Mark, because I just thought, well, I'll learn techniques and blah, blah, blah. But anyway.
I've heard, you did fight Mark on that.
Well, we were in the corner. My fists were up. But for everyone, he's 6'2". He would have taken me, but I would have put some bruises on his knees, man. I would have reached up and hit those knees. All right, so let's go to contestant number 2, Nitay-Yair.
Levi, yes.
Levi, yes. Advice for life. Now, again, he is a Stage Time member, so just want to clarify that. And so we've worked with him. Mike and Mark have worked with him as well. And I'll just jump right in. Like, he started with the goat laugh. Like, how much more transparent can you be when you start off with an annoying laugh and it's yours? You're not making fun of somebody else. Yeah. And I did love, too, how transparent he got when he talked about I hate you, when he used those words and saying that to his own mother. That was powerful.
Yeah.
I thought it was very funny. Love at first fight.
Yep.
When he was boxing, and this is where I can't wait to talk about the winner, because she was the best I've ever seen at this. But that was brilliant. Love at first fight. And if you haven't seen the speech, by the way, the top 3 speeches are on YouTube. Go watch them. Go watch them and then come back and compare to what we're saying, but go and watch them. Love at First Fight was very funny. And then this is a great example, Mark and Mike, of what we teach about using not someone's name,
right,
but the essence of who they are. And he even talked about this, Mark, in the interview after the fact, contestant interview, and he used big brown eyes. And then there was baby brown eyes. And whatever you pictured. And that's the key for you as a presenter, getting people to picture. Doesn't matter what they picture. It matters that they picture. So that being said, I really felt his too. It was heartfelt. Mike, I'll pass it to you.
Well, anytime somebody I've worked with is in a contest, I'm already biased. You each know what that's like. Mark and I were there in the beginning at stage time last year when Nitay brought this to us, and it was a mess, as Craig Valentine would say. It was a mess. A message is a mess with age. And he loved the laugh. And I have Chihuahuas. He is dead on that is a Chihuahua combined with a goat. I mean, that's exactly it. I love the poignancy of when he talked about his wife saying, you're at work. And then he said, he turned around and said, when I was at work, I was at work, and I was at work, I was at work. And when I was at home, I was at work.
Yeah.
So this was a very transparent, and there is a bit of a hero's journey to this, where he had to get the lesson. Mom was the guru. She taught him, and he finally heard it. I echo a lot of what Darren said. Absolutely. Just the growth to what you said before, Lance. You talk about somebody who grew through this process. That was Nitay. And I'll hand it over to you, Lance.
Okay. Incredible energy. I mean, you talk about someone who didn't leave anything on that stage. Incredible energy. On a couple points I saw with it, and this is a pet peeve of mine. I do not like speeches that start off with a confusion. All he needed to do is orient me to the laugh. I thought the Chihuahua and goat analogy was phenomenal. But when he started with that laugh, I was like, what in the world? It created a confusion for me. And if he would have said, I heard my mom or something like that, if he would have just oriented me to what that was, is what I would have liked. On the green eyes, was it green eyes, blue eyes, brown eyes, or whatever?
Yes, blue, green, brown. Yes.
Yeah. There was a disconnect with me on that. I would have liked to have seen a triad. If he's not going to use their name, I would have liked to have seen some sort of a triad where the eyes were the last on the thing. And so that I had a little bit more description rather than I felt like I was getting cheated because I wasn't really getting who this person was. It was blue eyes. And I was like, that's all you're going to tell me about it? There's more here. And then I also felt that there was something he didn't want to say their name because they might be listening and, from that standpoint. But I think it could have worked. I would have liked to have seen a triad on it. The last thing I would say for me, and this is, we talk about the fear speech. This was a love speech. This was about, and I would have liked to have seen that taken to another unique message rather than just, I love you, or tell them I love you. I would have liked to have seen that taken to the next generation. So it was a unique message. And there was some demonstration because he didn't really give me a demonstration. He just said, well, tell them you love you. To me, your love is through actions more than words. And I love them because I left my work at home. To show where he set up why he wasn't showing love. And then as the speech progressed, he changed that to show he was loving. And then you get the meat of the speech that's coming through. Those are some of the things I mentioned. And the last thing, and I will say this, I think he got rewarded for it. And I mentioned this in the beginning. And one of the things I look for, all of us competed on the big stage in front of several thousand people. And I look for things that would work as a world champion speaker that will work on a stage. And when he did the thing, it was brilliant.
Yes.
the way he moved around and showed the time, but you can't do it on a stage. What I'm looking for is a world champion of public speaking, not a world champion of virtual speaking.
Interesting point. Nitai has grown also in his writing. The Lion, Love at First Fight, we caught that. He said, crushed, I rushed home. Had that rhyme going there as well. So he has some nice writing, and he's very, very deliberate in his language. I don't think he was over the top in terms of being conversational, but he chose when to use language for effect. And regarding the effect of using the black screen and so on, that was a technique he also used in the semifinal. For those who did not see and wouldn't have known that, but that almost became the Nitay-Yair Levi thing in some people's mind. Let me rephrase that. That could have become the Nitai thing in some people's mind. And Mike Carr last year set a precedent of how to use the medium of that small space in front of us through which people can see us. And that was cleverly done, and it worked for him in the way he set it up. No doubt about that. I give him compliments for being the person who would share his life story and his failures by being vulnerable about what he had done in his life. And I think he was doing his best to really draw us in to feel what it was like for him when he realized that to his wife, his love was not for her. It was for his work. It was for his job. It was for his desire to provide. And it's a struggle that we all feel. Now, Michael and I talk a lot about moments in the speech. And there could have been a moment when the realization was so real for him that it would hit us really hard as well. And again, with all the colorful language, I think it was brilliant. But for every presenter, if we can determine a moment in your presentation that resonates with us, I say you put some air around that moment. The moment comes and you pause for us to invite that in. You know, when the realization, not his wife telling him, when you're not here, you're at work. When you're home, you're at work. What was the impact on him? And what should it say for us to re-examine our relationships? You know, what was the cause of his relationships falling apart until finally he found out from his mother what the wisdom was? Let those moments really resonate. Put some air around them. Let them hit us. Not just Nitai, all of us. Let those moments work. Darren.
And Mark, and I'm going to just jump in on just for a second.
Yeah.
To that point, I love the love at first fight, but he needed some air around that. That was such a great line.
Yeah.
And it sort of got split. It sort of got just blended in with the story.
Yeah.
And he said, oh man, you know, he says, she was beautiful. She was everything I want. It was love. It was love it for, I mean, he could have really made that impactful from that standpoint. And just to your point, putting some air around some of those special moments, really, that's where the surprise pop comes in. And that's where it pops with realizations or unexpected content to the audience, which creates the connection.
Yeah, for what I teach around that is what's that key line, and then Mark, you remember David McElhaney taught me this: put a 3 heartbeat pause before it, and a 3 heartbeat pause after it, thus lifting it up and showing its importance and letting it breathe, letting us absorb it before you confuse us and you're going to diminish. It's like stepping on a laugh. You're going to diminish because you're stepping on a thought. And so I think we need to, what I loved about David McElhaney's advice is he said 3 heartbeat. Like, I feel that. I have to feel that moment. And I feel it like, Lance, what you're saying, I would feel it differently in front of 1,000 people than I would in front of a camera, but it would be appropriate for the 1,000 people when I do that one, and it would be appropriate for the camera when I do this one if I have that idea in that. And then if you're uncomfortable, thank you, if you're uncomfortable, you can use a reaction like love at first fight, and then just kind of mug, if you will, give us some, be playful, but in silence, backing up that reaction point. There was one coaching point that I would have, and I popped this to Mark or Michael or Lance, what you thought about this. Now, you guys might not probably remember this line, But when you give us a message that is your heart, your soul, like that's what you're there to deliver. One misstep that I think he did, and it wasn't bad, but I think it could have been tighter. He said, as he was wrapping it up, as you travel through life. Okay, I think that's too broad. I think we need to find that moment where this message is going to apply and remind us, not as you travel through life, but more specifically when you come across someone who's mean to you, not necessarily those words, but where does his message, what would it apply? So then we're thinking of it, you're planting that seed that 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months later, not just when we travel through life, but we come across that situation where this message applies, you're more likely to apply it. Any thoughts on that?
As in, when faced with difficult relationships, as opposed to when you travel through life, when you're struggling with a boss or a coworker. So give us some context you're saying.
Yes.
Got it.
That's my...
I agree totally with that.
Yeah.
But as you travel through life is the general, that's like a narration. Tell me the story. Give me the details. So it's like when you like what Mark said, when you run into that person you just can't get along with, let's figure out what we can do. And that's where I talk about the message isn't the cancer, it's how you overcame the cancer. It's the same thing. Where are you gonna apply this?
What's that? Yeah, what's that relatable moment?
Right.
This message would apply. Mike?
I'm convinced because of the coaching we do for the contest that the word "as" puts you in speaker mode. As I stood at the edge of the cliff looking over, we've seen this so many times. It's a little word, but it triggers something in speakers that says, now I'm going to be speaker man. Yeah. Instead of, I was just, the next time you get into a fight with your spouse, remember this. Instead of, as you think about the difficulties in your, no, you don't speak that way.
And if I could be so
bold, Mike, what I would look at too, in a coaching standpoint, I would look at 3 examples of how he applied that in his life as he moved forward, where they're actual examples, and the audience gets the examples. He applies this in his life now, and they go, "Oh, I could apply it in my life to this." Versus the general, that's the narration of as you go through life, you should do this. That's the narration and the commanding authority. You need to accept my message instead of you're experiencing my message and you have accepted it of your own free will. I'm telling it to you,
All right, Mark, I'm channeling you with my bad puns. We have a new coaching term. Get off your ass. Yeah, I like it. Those jeans do make your ass look fat. Sorry, but I'll give it to myself.
Don't blame me for that, please.
Yeah,
I had nothing to do with that.
I had to bring it up.
And as we go into
the last one, go ahead, Darren.
As we go into the world champion of public speaking, the 2021 new member of the fraternity,
of the family.
As we go in, here's one thing that everybody, even who made the semifinals, even who came in second at their district, everyone can do is take your speech and give it as a TEDx talk. Why would you put so much energy and effort? Look, you grow, your talents grew. Perfect. You're going to apply that for the rest of your career. But why would you not take what you work so hard on and find another platform? Find another platform. By the way, Mark and Mike, I had a conversation with Bertram, and I told him just that. I was like, find a TEDx talk, because he's like, what could I have done better? I'm like, stop. It's not about tweaking it so you would have won. You're so passionate, Bertram. Go give it somewhere else. And I say that to everyone. Why not find another platform? Why would you start over? Take this that you've done, and now you've got 18 minutes. Now you can put a little bit more back in, but be careful what you put back in. All right, so we're going to go to Verity Price, a great read, the world champion of public speaking for 2021. And Lance, you don't know this, but Mark and I and Ed were watching it virtually on a Zoom together. And as soon as she was done, we were all like, she's the winner. It was that clear, unless obviously someone came along. But
we said so far. Far.
Well, That's what you guys said. No, but anyway, so Mike, I'm gonna toss it to you first before we go to Lance. Lance, you're gonna go last since you were the coach. You can give us some of those coaching insights. Mike Davis, what'd you think?
A
The
great
speech,
read.
yeah. At first, I love the title because it's like it's curious. Don't know where it's going. As soon as she whipped the letter out, I was hooked because one of my TEDx coachees whipped out a letter in his TEDx talk, and he's had 3 million hits. It's a powerful way to get a message out. So I just love the whole concept. This is the hero's journey personified. She's struggling.
Mike, let me pause right there, because I want to piggyback on that thought, and Lance, I want to bring you into this because you worked with her. Here was one, like the letter. I love the letter. Here was one challenge. It didn't look like a ragtag letter to me. She talked about it being in the mess, and it looked like a finely folded letter. Now, maybe it was, but I started questioning. I'm like, was that really the letter? Which I shouldn't have. She's awesome. I loved her, but Lance, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was the letter.
Was it?
That was the letter.
Wow.
And I didn't have an issue because to me, it wasn't like it was just typed. I mean, it had been folded, some stuff. It wasn't wadded up for sure.
Right. Obviously, it was from her dad.
No, but that was the letter, and I'll get into it. Those weren't the exact words because we had to work the message.
Sure.
But that message was in the letter to her.
I would have like, again, she won. I would have liked to if she just kind of turned it for a second, even if we couldn't read it. But I thought it was
interesting. I'll just tell you, in her semifinal, she had a book. It was about her mother. And she had a book of what everybody wrote, and she actually had the book, and she opened it up and read out of it. And she did that. And we coached her on that to turn it so we can see it, and you could actually see the handwritten script on it. And before she didn't, she would hold it up, and it didn't look real. So to that point, it's a very minor point in this case, but it's those little things that add up. There's those little things that add up. But go ahead.
All right.
Yeah, I wanted to sit actually writing myself too, because I have one, Lance, that I did receive years ago that is kind of ratty. I was kind of showing it to you guys a while ago. Not to make up, here it is. It's forgive the white balance there, but it's kind of ratty. It's got some notes on there. I kind of marked it up, but I've carried this letter with me in my briefcase for a long time. There's 2 of them actually that 2 kids wrote to me years ago when I was speaking, and having them in that condition, I can open it and show the yellow markings and the lettering, and people respond to that. I just thought to myself, I can't see any print on it. I'd love to see what it looks like. Was it handwritten or was it typed? That's all. Yeah.
Tiny thing. Again, didn't change the outcome, but that's where, this is the problem with being a coach. You look at everything. Mike, back to you.
I love the fairy tale to scary tale. Yes. Absolutely. And she proved why it was her scary tale all the way through up until the change. But this is the hero's journey. Struggle. She's at a point where now she's living at her sister's house in this room. And she at one point said, I was a mess. My life was a mess. The spare room was a mess. So nice humor, but she's creating this picture that's telling us how difficult her situation is. A couple of things I love about the scene with the friend at the grocery. She literally looks back at the door when her friend asks her her friend says, what about you? She looks back at the door, and in that moment, I can tell she's in pain because now she has to share or lie or whatever with this friend. I did have a slight issue with that conversation with the friend because the way she delivered it. She said, oh, you're married. You have kids. You have your own business. She went through that too fast because that was not a realistic dialogue. Her friend would make it more realistic was to say, oh, you're married. Oh, you have 2 kids. You have a business. I didn't hear the friend saying it before she was on to the next one. And that we see that all the time with the phone calls too. People running through phone calls, nitpicky, obviously, but make that a little more realistic as far as letting me hear the other person through that dialogue. And then just the whole transformation about how that letter transformed her. Her father was the guide, the guru in this that changed her, and taking us all the way through the end to where she says, write your own story. It'll be a great read. There was consistency in that message. It was clear. Her language was conversational. I felt like she was talking to me.
I agree. Genuine, authentic. And I just loved her dad.
Yeah.
I wanted to meet him. I really wanted to meet her dad because as a dad myself, I can relate. As a dad who was lost his job, I can relate. As a dad who was struggled, am I going to pay the mortgage? I can relate. And she really made me like him a whole lot. I was almost fascinated by him. So to me, she built that conflict in his life and his response to it in such a powerful, meaningful way. And then she has her own change. Her transformation takes place when she realizes, hey, I need to write a different story. Perhaps there again, the moment when it hits, could have a little bit more air around it to cause me to think about my own life. And do I need to change the story I'm writing? And I loved how she used the end of her speech, good writing, to bring me back to the idea. Now, a great read, having gone through the story, makes that much more sense. And I want my life to be a great read. So the writing was really well done there. And I was able to appreciate that. She seemed conversational, genuine, authentic. I just liked her presentation. I liked her characters. And I think she has a background in theater and film, but nothing seemed overacted to me. I really felt her speech. Again, I told you because I can relate to her dad and what he went through in a very personal way. So a little too much about myself right now. So I'll pass it over to Darren again, and he'll decide what to do.
That's the point, though, Mark. You related. It was about you. That's not too. That's exactly for everyone watching. That's what you're trying to do, to give a speech so we see ourselves or the real life characters in our lives in your speech. So, Mark, that's perfect. Mike, you're going to say something?
I was just going to add to what Mark said. I liked her dad right away. He's an optimist. I tend to be an optimist too. And here's the beauty of it. Her dad is touching lives today because of her, and he's gone.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate speech right there, where the star of your story, who is the guru, is touching lives even after they've died.
That's awesome. And if you're watching this, don't just watch her speech once or twice. Go back on YouTube, watch it every day for several days. Take notes. Here's one of the things that not just this contest, but past years, that people overdo it. I loved, Mark, I have a new term from her too. Lance, this is well done. Reaction dialogue. Reaction dialogue, not dialogue, but there, and that's the part Mike was talking about. Oh, you're married with kids. You bought a house. That's reaction dialogue. We never hear the other person talking, but she had already set up that she didn't have those things. So it's relevant. We know exactly how she's feeling. And then me, I'm great, understated.
And Darren, really, for those younger ones who have no clue what this means, you will know about this. The master of that in comedy, going back a gazillion years, was one Bob Newhart.
Mm-hmm.
He was the master of having one end of a conversation. You'd be laughing your left nostril off, but all you heard was his side, and he used the reaction with a straight face. He'd kill at that. And it's a technique I don't often see. You're right, Darren. I don't often see that in presentations. But if you can, watch Bob Newhart do some of the routines. It is absolutely phenomenal and very, very powerful. Back to you, Darren.
Yeah, I even loved when she was eating ice cream and binge watching Netflix. But everyone, watch that. She's not overdoing it. She's not like,
yeah,
like she's not overdoing it. You feel the authentic emotion of how she was eating the ice cream, and she was binge watching, but it was real and authentic, not choreographed, not overdone. You could just tell she went there in her head, and she just let her body express it.
And I've done that too. Binge watch Netflix and eat ice cream, but don't tell my wife. She's not here. No, I'm good.
And I wrote after the scary tale. I wrote funny, brilliant, original. I loved that. See how I showed the writing, Lance? Sorry, can't help myself. Uh, and by the way, we're teasing Lance. He was the winning coach. We love Lance. He's awesome. Work with Lance. What I love too is even when her dad gave advice, he had a twist on the cliche. It was not the cliche for everyone. Don't use cliches. But when you twist a cliche, that you just upped your game. You made it original. Aren't I lucky? So she's talking about the glass is half full, and her dad said, "Aren't I lucky? I have a glass." Ooh, we haven't heard that one before. And then don't worry. Like when he was dying and he was going to the hospital, don't worry, I love breakfast in bed. Like, like the ultimate optimist. But Lance, I don't know how much you work with her on the writing, but it was just said just right that it wasn't these long dyads to get the point across. It was so poignant. And we took the time on that. I also loved, I stopped worrying about where I wasn't. I stopped worrying about where I wasn't. Great writing. Is your story written for you or by you? I love when they lost the house and they had to be in an RV. It was like we were on holiday.
Yeah.
That's like, oh my gosh, how can you not love her father?
Yeah.
And there, oh, I love the line. I looked on Facebook. There were no stories of miserable 40-year-olds living in the spare room. Love that. And it just for everyone, what was done so well in her writing, it was crisp, it clear, it all advanced the story. It got us where we wanted to go without any extra words. So that being said, Coach Lance Miller.
And Coach Lance, real quickly, Lance, I was hoping maybe it's just I am the quintessential word nerd. And I think she had an opportunity for a triad. The details, delays, and then she said something else. And I was hoping for a third D. I didn't get it. But I had to watch the speech again to find out what it was. I think it was details, delays, and my brain was going, and derailments, but that didn't come. One minor picky detail from a word nerd, but I really enjoyed, related to, and appreciated that presentation, and would love to get your insight from the inside. The inside or inside.
I've been watching Lance during our feedback. You talk about a proud papa. Like, your face, you got that look, Lance.
Go, Lance.
Verity was wonderful to work with, and as we all know, with coaches, you know, you can only take somebody as far as they are willing to go. And I will let you know, Verity earned every second of the speech because she worked so hard on it, and the number of clubs that she was going through, and the amount of feedback she was getting. And one of the things I work with my people I coach with is say you have to be really careful with Toastmasters giving feedback. Everybody wants to rewrite your speech, and most of them don't know how to write a speech. You will get the worst feedback in the world. You have to have filters up. And I had a number of times that she was going up and down the emotions of the amount of crazy, stupid feedback Toastmasters will give you. And all well-meaning, well-meaning. They want to help you. They want to contribute to you, but none of them have even been in a speech contest. They're trying to, you're in the finals of the World Championship, and they're trying to tell you what to do. So I said, you got to have your filters up. And she did. She did that. The speech was, when I talk about this, speeches have a life of their own. It's like you have born into existence a living being that starts to develop on its own. And that speech is very much that way. Where it started and where it ended was completely different. And she had a cliche. She had a quote from somebody else that her father used. I think it was Tom Dyer. There's something about change the way you look and things will look the way they change, or something like that.
You look at will change. Yep.
Yeah. And we talked about, I said, we can't use, you had to be your message. And we went back and forth, and I would read her speeches, and we went back and forth and came up with, and after a number of evolutions of, I call it peeling the onion, getting down, getting all the dry skin of the onion off. And you get down to where you're getting some really good, poignant stuff that'll make people cry like an onion does. She is the one that really settled, which I would never give somebody their message. I'll make recommendations. Look at this, look at this. And here's the thing. I was on a Zoom call with her when we came up with the Write Your Own Story. And we talked about authenticity, which is one of the key things I'm trying to tap into with the speaker, to get them to connect to that message. Because you can't connect to the message to the audience if you're not connected to the message. And she had a twinkle in her eye and a little glow about her. And I know you've all seen that when somebody finally, everything sort of snaps into place for them all of a sudden. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, thank you, Darren. Yeah, I just looked at her and I said, you've got a twinkle and a glow about you. Tell me, this is what I want to say. And that's where we talked about getting, what is the takeaway? And when she got, this is what I want to say, we started working on, how that whole thing came together. And I'm a big use of triads. And if you go through her speech, there are a number of triads in it. And I will say too, one of the other things I'm a big proponent of is speaking is not acting. And there you get all these people that they drop that fourth wall and try to come into this dramatic scene that you're not, as you're always talking to the audience. And there were some things from that standpoint, but Verity was phenomenal, because what happens, we look at people and we mimic what we see and we try to go do that instead of owning the speech. And so the process that she went through was really owning the speech. And when she was done, she owned that speech. And I'll have to tell you, I also want to talk about the opening. The opening was clear. You know exactly what was going on, the setup on the great read of the fairy tale, but you had no idea where that read was going to go to the great read of her life. But it set it up in the beginning. So that thought, that concept on the great read was there, as she went through that. So, I mean, there's some specifics on it, but my hat's really off to Verity and as a coach, I know, especially Darren and Mark, you've seen this, you're working with someone, you're giving them ideas, and when you see them take the ideas and take it to a level that you didn't expect, come up with things you wouldn't have come up with yourself. And she, we were trying to get the opening going, and she came up with this whole thing, which had the fairy tale and she had this stuff, and the opening wasn't clicking. And she came up, I'm going to have my dad reading the fairy tale to me. And it was a great read, but I wanted my life to be like a fairy tale. And I went, that's brilliant. I would have never thought of that. And that's when you go, as you know, the thrill as a coach is we can sit down and take somebody's speech and write it, make it a great speech, but that's not the game. The game is to get them to do it. And I really saw Verity come through just in flying colors on everything she worked on. And to the conversation, just in that conversation with her friend in the supermarket, there was a lot of work that went into that. And I look at it now and I go, yeah, we could have put some more pauses in that. But what she worked with getting out of the acting mode and really making that authentic, working with the audience, where it wound up, that is just like the icing needed to be another 1/4 inch thick, to make it perfect. But yeah, I look at that and I go, that's really good feedback. And to your credit, normally when she had the letter, you could see the writing on it. It happened when she did it in the finals. She opened the letter, evidently you couldn't see the writing. I didn't pay attention to it because I'd seen the writing on the letter tons of times, Right. So it was one of those things that when you go deliver it, well, what happened in the final? All of us, our speech came out a little different than what we planned for.
Absolutely.
But to me, the speech came together. The line that came together that really bit me was when she said, is your story being written for you or by you? That summarized everything in that speech. And to Mark's point earlier, when we were talking about, be the great, inspire the greatness in others and stuff like that, everything he was talking about, the great read, that was the message. Is your story written for you or by you? That was the entire speech in 4 words. That was brilliant. And again, I will say that was Verity's writing straight through that standpoint. So but I will tell you where we started with it, where she wound up, huge amount of growth. To her credit, she worked, as all of us did. She worked and worked and worked to get that speech and got feedback and was speaking virtually all over the world. I would talk to her a couple times a week. I was speaking in London today. I did something in Singapore. I did this, and it was just like getting feedback and all the things and ups and downs. We all know the ups and downs, the emotional ups and downs you're going through. And then as a coach, that's one of the probably the biggest things is you're going through what we all went through. 2 weeks before my world championship, I was ready to let the alternate go. I said, I can't do this. You know, and then I looked at the alternate and I go, what are you kidding me? I'm going to go. I'm not going to
no.
But, you know, it was like, but I was literally ready to throw the towel in 2 weeks before the speech because I just go, I can't do this anymore. You know, I mean, you go through those. And so anyway, I'm so happy for Verity. Quite honestly, and I talked to her sister, and I want to say this, her sister Kay has been a tremendous support for her, but she talked to me and she says, Lance, this was about an hour after she won. She called me and she says, you don't know how important this is for Africa. And for us, we may not think of that. South Africa is having problems and Africa's never had a winner. She says, you don't know how, as an South African telling me that, you don't know how important this is. We need this. They were celebrating so much. They needed the win. And that is what we also know, that our win changes the world in small ways that can turn into big ways. And I'm excited to see. And as we all experience too, winning the world championship is not the end. It is just the beginning. And I'm excited to see what Verity brings to the world.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, Coach Lance Miller. Well done.
Thank you.
And congratulations, of course, to Verity.
Absolutely.
If you're watching this, please, again, forward this to your friends who are serious presenters who can maybe think beyond the contest as well, because we're going to help people help their audience much more than just a trophy. The trophy is the side effect. But look, no one becomes great alone. Go to lancemillerspeaks.com, check out his coaching program, check out getaspeakingcoach.com, and you'll find Mike Davis there and Mark Brown. Would love to have you in Stage Time University, but truly getting feedback from a world-class coach is a difference between connecting and not connecting, or confidence and not confidence. So coaches, I'll just ask you for one final quick thought as we wrap this marathon up. But it's been so much fun. I love hanging out with you guys and continue to learn from each other. So Mike Davis, final thought for anybody watching this who wants to be a better speaker.
Yeah, Mark said something earlier that he continually brings up in Stage Time is we're no longer speaking to a limited audience. We are speaking to a global audience where English is a second or third language. And of all the speakers, Verity cut through linguistic differences, cultural differences, and hit us in the heart. And that's what we should all shoot for, a universal message with a story of struggle and ultimate success. She did that. That's what we should each aim for.
Amen. Mark Brown.
If you can, watch all the contestants if you can. If nothing else, watch the top three. Take notes. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? And couple that with the recording that we're doing right now. And the next time you deliver a presentation, apply at least one of the lessons you learned from this process, and you'll be on your way, step by step, going from good to great to unforgettable.
Yeah, it's never one thing, it's layers, just layers of one technique. And if you're watching this, go back and watch, as Mark's saying, watch 1, 2, and 3 at least, and then come back and watch what we said and see if you saw what we saw. All right, Lance Miller, bring it home, Mr. Coach.
You know, everybody looks at this, looks at the competitions, and I would sum this up. I won in 2005, and that fall, I was invited to District, I think, was it 67 in Taiwan? And it's 67 or 69, I can't remember. But I was invited to Taiwan, and I had this huge group. They wanted me to do like two-hour seminars. I didn't know what I was going to talk about because I was giving 5 to 7 minute speeches. And so I had Q&A, and this person, and I'm in the clear in the back, he stands up there and he goes, "How can you teach me to speak like you?" And I looked at him, I went,
Okay.
"Why would you want to do that?" I said, "You need to speak like you." And I sat there and I watched this guy all of a sudden beam at the end of the room. But the power of your speaking is in your authenticity of who you are. And listen, watch the speeches. Listen to Mark. Listen to Darren. Listen to Mike. it's ultimately up for you to find your message and to speak like you, not to speak like somebody else. Figure out what works for you. And the way I did that was tons of speaking, by making mistakes and learning and looking, like Darren said, look at the speech. I would lose a speech contest and go home pounding on the steering wheel and how stupid the judges were. And I would go back and figure out why I lost it. Then I would fix that. Next year I was a better speaker. And that was the process. That was the process. It wasn't, I became a mimic of Tony Robbins or something. I'm not. And I wish I had Mark Brown's deep voice, And
very
I
kind,
wish there was
my
something
friend.
about Darren I wish I could have. But, I look at him and I look at his headset. No. Anyway, the point I want to make on that is that this is about you discovering yourself, your messages for the world, the difference you can make in the world. And it's your voice, your authenticity, and that's the journey. And find coaches which are here that will bring that out. There are a lot of people that will tell you how you're supposed to be. That is the bane of existence on planet Earth. Become yourself through the process.
And Mark Brown, if you could just leave us with your quote about you have a story.
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
Get a coach.
Check out StageTimeUniversity.com, where good presenters become unforgettable.